A deafening alarm blares within a facility where numerous guards aim their weapons at an unknown figure approaching them. Despite their relentless gunfire, the intruder continues to advance unscathed. The enigmatic woman launches an attack on the trembling guards, swiftly making her way into a room where a child is held captive. She rescues the unconscious child from the laboratory, and as she exits the facility, her companion addresses her as Yuchan, applauding her for dispatching the guards without opposition. Meanwhile, in the bustling capital city of Shinto Teito, Japan, students gather in a school to receive their exam results. The air is filled with congratulatory remarks, but young teenager Minato Sahashi's face betrays disappointment as he discovers he has once again failed the entrance examination. Lost in thought as he walks home, Minato contemplates his next move, feeling that things aren't unfolding as he had hoped. Suddenly, his world changes when he witnesses a girl inexplicably falling from the sky. Minato is startled to find the unfamiliar girl's rear end unexpectedly near his face. However, his intrigue grows when two girls suddenly materialize and summon the mysterious girl for a confrontation. In his confusion, Minato attempts to grasp the bizarre situation, only for the enigmatic girl to seize his wrist and escape her pursuers. Upon awakening, Minato discovers the girl peacefully asleep by his side. To his surprise, she undresses and dons his pajamas without realizing the awkwardness it might cause. Overwhelmed by embarrassment, Minato hastily exits his apartment, reflecting on the unusual circumstances that led to their encounter. He recalls her name, Musubi, as he observes her voraciously devouring a meal. As Minato contemplates their peculiar situation, Musubi interjects, requesting to spend the night with him due to being stranded. Reluctantly, he agrees. However, his landlord unexpectedly appears and delivers a stern warning, threatening eviction if Minato continues to have members of the opposite gender in his apartment. Musubi volunteers to prepare dinner after exhausting Minato's money on numerous dishes. They both head separate ways as Minato heads to the bank, only to suddenly encounter the girls that were chasing Musubi at a restaurant. Minato tries to beckon Musubi to flee as she runs to him asking what he'd like to eat, but things turn sour as she realizes it late when the bullies attack her, rendering her top in shreds. Minato rushes to protect Musubi and takes one of their attacks. He weakly turns to the girls and warns them to stay away from Musubi. Minato lifts Musubi swiftly as he flees with her into an alley, unknowingly to him that he's heading into a dead end. Minato pants and notices Musubi's face all red, only for her to pounce on him while staring at him seductively, saying her body feels hot. The bully suddenly appears and observes Musubi and attempts to stop her but fails as Musubi leans towards Minato for a kiss and suddenly emerges into something strange. The bullies express their disappointment as they plot to eliminate Minato to preserve their ego. Musubi attacks the bullies as she warns them to free Minato. The bullies flee as Musubi's skills outweigh theirs. Minato generously offers Musubi his jacket for warmth while discussing their unexpected meeting, discovering the existence of the Sekireis. Later, he calls his sister Yukari, who teases him about his exam results. Without explaining, he requests some of her old clothes. Minato then enjoys watching Musubi cook dinner, but his attention briefly shifts when a TV show host asks him not to switch off the television. The host extends congratulations to Minato for being Musubi's master, while Musubi recognizes the host as she addresses him as a professor. The professor expresses disappointment that Minato doesn't recognize his true identity. But what truly captures Minato's attention is the professor's knowledge about his identity and grades. Minato learns about the Sekirei plan and its details from the professor, who issues a stern warning about breaching confidentiality before the show abruptly ends. Soon after, a knock at Minato's door prompts him to rush and find a representative from the professor's company, who hands him a box. Later, Minato realizes the box contains Musubi's clothing. As Musubi begins changing, Minato tries to give her privacy, but she reassures him of her dedication. Their intimate moment is interrupted by their landlord, who discovers them and demands their immediate eviction. With nowhere to go, Minato spends the entire day searching for a new place for himself and Musubi, facing rejection at every turn. Brooding in a garden about their predicament, he questions Musubi about her decision to choose him as her ashikabi. In response, she begins a chant, and unexpectedly, they soar into the sky together. Minato and Musubi suddenly find themselves soaring through the sky, with Musubi apologizing for not knowing how they would safely land in the city. They eventually descend to the ground, and discover they're in an unfamiliar compound, where they are interrupted by a woman. This woman notices Minato's injury and Musubi's torn clothes, and kindly invites them inside for treatment. Once inside, a young teenager attends to Minato's injury and reveals that the woman they met earlier is named Mia. Musubi and Mia both check on Minato's well-being, and he learns that Maya is a widow. They all take turns making formal introductions, and the young teen, Kagari, introduces himself as well. During dinner, another young teen named Uzume unexpectedly appears in her underwear and joins them for the meal. Curious about their new acquaintances, Minato asks Mia how they all came together, and she explains that she's the owner of the boarding house, while Uzume and Kagari are her tenants, not her family. Realizing that Mia could use more tenants, Minato seizes the opportunity and requests to stay with them, keeping their situation in mind. Without any hesitation, Mia readily accepts their request. Later, Minato calls his mother to update her on his relocation, only to have his allowance cut in half as a stern reminder to pass his exams if he wants the rest. While on the phone, Musubi interrupts to report the state of their shampoo, but an unexpected mishap leaves her naked and landing on Minato's face. Minato begins packing his belongings to prepare for the move, but he's surprised by an unannounced visit from his sister Yukari. Musubi joins their discussion, and Yukari observes the situation, introducing herself to Musubi. Yukari bids her brother and Musubi farewell as she continues her journey. Musubi effortlessly handles their entire luggage, leaving Minato in astonishment. She explains to him that this ability is one of the advantages of being a fist-type Sekirei, granting her extra strength. Mia warmly welcomes them to the boarding house and escorts them to their room. During their settling in, Minato reminds Musubi to be cautious about revealing her identity, emphasizing the need for confidentiality, hoping it won't bring trouble since the professor would likely be keeping a close watch on them. In a mysterious room, surveillance screens display different individuals, including Minato, while an eerie girl watches and chuckles sinisterly. Musubi and Minato head to the bath together, and she playfully invites him to join her in the bath, but he quickly declines, claiming he'll bathe later. Minato sits alone, pondering how they managed to safely land in Mia's building after their fall from the sky. Meanwhile in the bath, Uzume joins Musubi and notices a mark on her neck. Excitedly, she reveals that she too is a Sekirei. The bathroom is filled with tension as Musubi challenges Uzume to a fight, but Uzume tries to persuade her not to engage, expressing her disinterest in a fight. Chaos ensues, and Uzume disappears while urging Musubi to reconsider the confrontation. Musubi rushes towards Uzume in the garden, but Mia intervenes just in time to prevent them from colliding with a pan. She chastises the girls for the havoc they nearly caused and sternly advises them not to let it happen again. Meanwhile, Minato awakens from an unusual dream and encounters the young girl he had previously met while touching the garden's tree. She urgently requests his assistance. Minato experiences a sense of unease after encountering the perplexing dream, attempting to unravel its meaning. Later, Minato and Musubi become curious upon hearing an unusual noise and decide to investigate, only to discover Mia practicing a sword technique. Musubi impulsively joins her and suggests a friendly spar. Concerned, Minato approaches Uzume, asking her to convince Musubi not to engage in the fight. However, Uzume declines, noticing Musubi's enjoyment in trying to outmaneuver Mia. Meanwhile, Minato resumes his initial job, which proves more challenging than expected. During lunchtime, as he attempts to savor his meal, a co-worker stares at his food incessantly, leaving Minato with no choice but to share some. Two women join them, and one of them confronts the co-worker for mooching off his colleague's lunch. Minato attempts to express his gratitude, only to realize that the women are the same bullies who had previously targeted them. Startled, he jumps in fear, causing his lunch to tumble to the ground. Minato discovers that the colleague he shared his meal with is the ashikabi of the two girls, and is taken aback as he inappropriately touches them, while expressing his surprise at encountering another person with his role. This co-worker introduces himself as Kaoru Seo. Elsewhere, a young man makes a phone call after seeing news about the demolition of an arboretum. He expresses disappointment at this sudden development, as he had been closely monitoring the situation to ensure his colleague would be the first to meet the girl within it. Back at Minato's workplace, their boss informs them that they will be ending their tasks earlier than usual today due to an MBI-ordered evacuation of the premises, involving the arboretum. Kaoru suggests they both investigate the girl in the arboretum. Meanwhile, Musubi confides in Mia about her concern for Minato, who left his phone behind and headed to work. Minato, filled with fear, trembles as he watches Kaoru and his Sekireis causing chaos to gain access to the Arboretum. Minato enters a brief trance as the young girl signals for him to locate her and demonstrates the path. Kaoru notices this and questions Minato, prompting Minato to explain his intention to find the girl who appeared to be in distress and alone. In the midst of this, Musubi intervenes in a scuffle involving someone resembling Kagari and another abandoned Sekirei, immobilizing the aggressor as their master goes to seek the green-haired little girl. Kaoru provides Minato with insight into the responsibilities of an Ashikabi and the roles of the Sekirei. He emphasizes the importance of rescuing the girl from those with selfish intentions, as some individuals can forcibly activate a Sekirei against their will just to increase their own numbers. Suddenly, Minato's urgency surges, compelling him to hasten towards the girl. He rushes to restrain a mysterious woman attempting to harm the green girl, but ends up getting zapped in the process. Meanwhile, the bullies, Hikari and Hibiki, come to the girl's defense, attacking the woman. The little girl approaches Minato and affectionately addresses him as her big brother before fainting. Musubi shields Minato from the lady's sword, protecting him in the chaotic situation. Musubi shatters the lady's sword and issues a stern warning against endangering Minato with careless swings. Enraged, the lady retaliates by attacking Musubi, leading to a fierce battle between the two. During the intense skirmish, Musubi's clothing is torn, inadvertently exposing her chest. The lady taunts Minato for being Musubi's Ashikabi. Drawing upon Miya's training advice, Musubi employs a strategic approach, charging at her opponent with precision. She executes a skillful maneuver and removes the mark from her adversary's back, resulting in the lady's defeat. Shocked and stripped of her clothes, the defeated Sekirei, Mikogami, lies in disbelief, trying to come to terms with her loss in the battle. Miya greets her tenants, noticing Musubi in an unusual attire and the presence of a young girl. Minato fibs about the young girl, Kuchan, pretending she's a relative. Later, Minato finds himself on the balcony with Kuchan, expressing his gratitude for her rescue. Unexpectedly, Kuchan leans in to kiss Minato, making an astonishing request for him to become her Ashikabi as she emerges, leaving him completely taken aback. Kagari rendezvous with a one-eyed woman to be picked up from the boarding house and inquires about the well-being of Kuchan and the landlady. The next day, Minato gets ready for work and comes across news of the abrupt destruction of the Arboretum, with no apparent use of pesticides. He spots Kuchan sitting alone and approaches her, only for her to break down in tears. She grieves the loss of her plants, which were destroyed by her oldest friend Shi-chan, who possesses an ability that contrasts with Kuchan's. Minato learns that Kaoru has quit his job at the construction site and curiously questions his director about it. Meanwhile, Kuchan quivers with fear while observing Miya training with Musubi, but remains reluctant to enter the house, preoccupied with something else. Upon returning home, Minato is taken aback by Kaoru's unexpected presence. Miya introduces Kaoru as her late husband's best friend, who typically visits only when he's in need of food. Kaoru attempts to intimidate Kuchan, who watches from a distance but refuses to approach. Miya intervenes by reprimanding Kaoru and even giving him a spanking. Hikari and Hibiki join Miya in scolding Kaoru before bidding them farewell. Later, Musubi bathes with Uzumi and inquires about why she isn't with her Ashikabi as expected. However, Uzume's response is evasive, and she refrains from divulging any information about her Ashikabi. In the middle of the night, Kuchan awakens to use the restroom and senses an eerie presence observing her. Filled with fear, she rushes to seek refuge with Minato. During breakfast, Minato elaborates to Miya and the others about their encounter with the ghost that Kuchan claimed to have seen. However, they can only recall a few details, such as the person wearing glasses and having long hair. Maya entrusts the boarding house to her tenants as she informs them about the day being her late husband's memorial. Musubi volunteers to prepare lunch and indulges in some dress-up fun with Uzume and Kuchan. Meanwhile, the mysterious lady in glasses continues to clandestinely observe Minato as he has lunch with the girls. Simultaneously, two strangers coincidentally cross paths on the roadside. Following their apologies for the collision, the woman who bumped into the man notices that he's being chased and chooses to shield him, despite not fully comprehending the circumstances. She hastily seizes his hand, and they make a quick escape from their pursuers. Meanwhile, back at the boarding house, Minato continues to sense an eerie presence. Musubi then recounts their experience at the Arboretum to Minato, revealing the unsettling fact that all Sekireis who lose in a battle disappear. However, she reassures him, vowing never to leave his side and never to lose a fight, expressing her heartfelt desire to remain by his side indefinitely. Hearing the landlady's voice, Musubi runs to see her. The mysterious woman who has been spying on them labels Musubi as her enemy because she has shown an interest in Minato. When the landlady asked Musubi to help with the groceries, she was attacked while she checked her list. Minato saw Musubi was missing, but didn't think much of it. Later, as he was getting ready to wash his hair, a strange woman unexpectedly rested her bum on his back. She cautiously approaches Minato while stripping off her clothes. The strange lady introduces herself as a Sekirei to Minato, whose name is Matsu. Musubi returns home with torn clothes as she explains her predicament which she encountered while shopping. Mia stops Musubi from going out in an immodest manner and implores her to take a bath instead. Matsu relays every information she has on Minato to him as she stares at him and requests him to calm her body down as she feels hot and has chosen him as her ashikabi. Musubi's presence interrupts Matsu, which leads her to capture Musubi in a net made by MBI just to return to her business with Minato. Mia gathers them all together as she introduces Matsu as part of the residents of the boarding house. Minato realizes Matsu had been the ghost Kuchan encountered previously. Matsu explains to them about her being a target as she's in hiding. Mia confesses to her tenants about her late husband also being a member of the MBI, who accepted all who requested a place to stay without judgment. Maya uses an eviction notice to threaten Matsu, which leads her to making a formal apology to all for the trouble she had been causing them. The woman who hastily brings a stranger to her room finds herself uncertain about what to do next. To her surprise, the stranger requests a kiss to bond as his ashikabi. Meanwhile, another Sekirei named Homura is rescued by his colleague Tsukiyumi, who refuses to witness his demise without being the cause of it. Homura advises Tsukiyumi to meet with her ashikabi to emerge and gain more power, but she adamantly declines, considering humans as mere monkeys and rejecting the idea of intimacy for power. Matsu pays a visit to Minato's room, continuing her mission, and eventually shares a kiss with him, leading to her full emergence. However, their illicit act is caught red-handed by Mia, who punishes them. Remarkably, Musubi remains sound asleep, undisturbed by the commotion. Matsu ceases her surreptitious meal to join them for breakfast. Minato notices Kagari's body concealed beneath bandages, with Kagari revealing minimal details about his burns. Later, as Minato attempts to study, he is plagued by a disturbing nightmare featuring a mysterious woman threatening his life. Troubled by this dream, Minato decides to seek answers from Matsu regarding the Sekirei plan after receiving an email from his sister. Matsu explains the intricacies of the Sekirei plan, revealing that the mastermind behind this scheme is the professor, who orchestrates battles between Sekireis to safeguard their ashikabis, ultimately leaving only one pair standing. In their quest to locate the girl from Minato's dream, Minato and Matsu realize that they are up against a formidable Sekirei named Tsukiyumi, who harbors a strong aversion towards ashikabis and wields considerable power. Musubi joins them, reassuring Minato of his safety. Minato resolves to meet with Tsukiyumi in an attempt to persuade her to join their cause rather than harm him. Following this decision, Matsu proposes a plan in which Minato acts as bait to draw Tsukiyumi towards him, with Kuchan assigned to guard him. Tsukiyumi endeavors to locate her ashikabi, but faces an attack from the twin Sekireis, who target pre-emerged Sekireis like her. Hikari and Hibiki urgently approach Kaoru, urging him to flee as they are pursued. Meanwhile, Minato hears another scream and looks up, only to find himself on the ground as Tsukiyumi falls on him, suddenly experiencing a sensation of heat once more. Tsukiyumi strikes Minato without giving him a chance to defend himself, but Kuchan begs her to let him handle it since he wants to win her over to his side. When Hikari, Hibiki, and Tsukiyumi realize Tsukiyumi won't agree to become his ashikabi and decide to show Kaoru their love affair because she is still a child, Minato rushes to shield Kuchan from seeing such sexual activity because she is still a minor. Tsukiyumi initially tries to attack Minato but misses her target. In order to attack Tsukiyumi, the twin Sekireis combine their powers as they chant an incarnation. Matsu perceives the danger Minato faces and instructs Musubi to check on him, simultaneously sending her a map. Tsukiyumi is taken aback to discover Minato shielding her from the twin Sekirei's attacks. Tsukiyumi attempts to retaliate against the twins, but mistakenly strikes Kaoru instead, causing him to angrily restrain her. He tries to coerce her into accepting him as her ashikabi, since her attack resulted in the loss of a package belonging to one of his clients. Tsukiyumi struggles to break free from Kaoru's grasp, torn between her inner desire to choose Minato as her Ashikabi rather than Kaoru. Minato intervenes, requesting that Kaoru release Tsukiyomi and confidently asserting his role as her Ashikabi. The twin Sekireis scold Kaoru for his inappropriate actions towards Tsukiyomi, who moves closer to Minato, asking him to take responsibility for his earlier proclamation that she is his Sekirei. After a series of exchanges, Tsukiyomi asks Minato to introduce himself, leading to her acceptance of him as her Ashikabi, albeit with a marriage condition. Minato tries to clarify his statement, but Tsukiyomi playfully bullies him into admitting it. As Kaoru and his Sekireis look on, Tsukiyomi emerges after kissing Minato. Hibiki and Hikari express disappointment as their efforts prove futile. Tsukiyomi, consumed by jealousy, attacks Minato upon realizing that she isn't his only Sekirei, but rather the fourth one at the moment. Musubi announces their return to Miya, who has been waiting outside with concerns about their whereabouts. Tsukiyomi introduces herself as Minato's wife to Miya, sparking her curiosity about Tsukiyomi's identity. Minato finds himself dumbfounded as his Sekireis gather around him, each proclaiming themselves as his wife. Kagari is taken aback by Minato's ability to attract such a large number of Sekireis in a short period. Miya reproves the girls, preventing them from fighting each other, as she firmly rejects any form of violence in her boarding house, the Maison Izumo. She shares her knowledge about the Sekirei plan and accepts her new tenant. Observing Kagari, Tsukiyomi senses a familiar presence but struggles to recall their previous encounter. Kagari interrupts her by introducing himself briefly and then departing. Matsu advises Kagari to consider emerging and inquires about his burns from a past battle. Kagari declines Matsu's offer, confiding in her about his burning desire to eliminate the malevolent professor responsible for their plight. Yukari wrestles with the urge to sneak a glimpse at her guest while he takes a shower, reflecting on their prior conversation. She recalls her attempt to prevent him from kissing her, which led to his revelation about the Sekirei plan and his desire to confirm her as his Ashikabi through mucosal contact. Yukari opts to keep this revelation a secret, not wanting her family to discover her current situation. She suggests they go shopping together to find suitable clothing for her guest. Meanwhile, Tsukiyomi finally encounters Matsu and learns about her status as one of Minato's Sekirei during a meal with the others. Minato quivers in apprehension as Tsukiyomi issues a stern warning about the consequences he'll face if he accepts Musubi's offer to feed him. However, Kuchan intervenes and playfully forces a hot dog into Minato's mouth, disrupting the situation. After their meal, Minato sits with Kuchan on the balcony, and she inquisitively asks him about his feelings among all the Sekireis. He responds by expressing his respect for each of them for choosing him as their Ashikabi, without singling out anyone in particular. Kuchan shares an affectionate peck with Minato and asks him to make her his wife when she grows older. Meanwhile, the professor instructs his assistant to advance the Sekirei plan to the next phase after learning about Tsukiyomi's emergence. One of the professor's assistants, Takami-kun, expresses his revulsion for the Sekirei plan, having grown weary of everything associated with it, as he delivers a report. Takami-kun recalls a past adventure with the professor Minaka, during which they stumbled upon something peculiar in the mountains. Their curiosity led them to an unexpected discovery: a naked girl lying unconscious within a tube filled with mysterious substances. In a different setting, Minato awakens from his slumber, finding his Sekireis nestled closely around him. As he recollects the strange event, he remembers that the girls had previously argued about who had the right to sleep in the bed with him. Surprisingly, Kuchan decides not to sleep in Miya's room, while the rest make themselves comfortable. Maya, holding a knife, opens the door and serves as a stern reminder to Minato regarding her strict stance against any form of sexual activity within her boarding house. Miya gathers Musubi, Kuchan, Tsukiyomi, and Minato for an official announcement in her capacity as the landlady. She explains her decision to allocate separate rooms for the girls instead of allowing them to squabble over taking turns as Minato's wife. Matsu detects a change in the deployment of the MBI's private army through her system. Tsukiyomi, asserting herself as the true wife, refuses to be separated from Minato and delegates household chores to Kuchan and Musubi while Miya departs to purchase groceries. A mysterious woman arrives in an expensive car at the boarding house. Musubi waters the plants and initially hesitates to allow Kuchan to help, fearing she'll get wet, but inadvertently drenches their unexpected guest. Musubi quickly identifies the visitor as Karasuba-sama, an acquaintance. Karasuba-sama explains her sudden visit prompted by a rumor circulating about Musubi. Minato joins them, alerted by a strange voice in the compound, and Musubi offers Karasuba-sama a spare outfit while her clothes dry. Mitsu, another character, seeks Minato's attention while he attempts to serve tea to his guest. Kagari observes Karasuba's departure from the house, harboring suspicions about her ulterior motives. Matsu receives an urgent system alert, and turning to Minato, urges him to switch on the TV. As they gather around the television, Professor Minaka makes a public announcement regarding a citywide lockdown and orders inspections for all outgoing traffic. Matsu goes into meticulous detail about the professor's sinister plan to turn the city into a battlefield. Meanwhile, Miya spots Karasuba leaving her residence and sternly warns her against making such visits in the future. Karasuba, in response, reminds Miya of her own Sekirei status, revealing a crucial piece of information that the others seem unaware of. Later, Karasuba notices another Sekirei by the roadside and implores her Ashikabi to allow her to have some fun. The abandoned Sekirei attempts to persuade her fellow Sekirei to accept the challenge of facing Karasuba, but her pleas are ignored, leading to a tragic outcome as she meets her demise. Musubi and Minato stand together, observing the helicopters circling the city. Musubi, her voice hushed, double-checks with Minato if they are alone. She shares with him a secret promise she made with Karasuba, a promise meant only for his ears. This pact revolves around their determination to survive the fierce battles among the Sekireis, ultimately proving whose theory about the necessity of humans is correct. Musubi goes on to disclose the intricate details of this commitment to Minato, revealing her aspiration to be the last Sekirei standing. Her goal is to bring an end to the separation of broken-winged Sekirei from their Ashikabi and restore harmony to the entire Sekirei community. Yukari attempts to disguise her guest as a girl in an effort to protect them from being identified as a Sekirei. Unfortunately, her efforts prove futile when a stranger named Mikogami notices them and expresses a strong desire to claim Yukari's guest as his own, as they haven't manifested yet. Amidst this commotion, Maya intervenes during another argument between the girls. She instructs them to put their differences aside and go shopping, setting a condition that whoever returns first will have the privilege of sitting with Minato. MBI's private army conducts a comprehensive road inspection, causing a traffic jam. Two unfamiliar teenagers swiftly walk past the soldiers, ignoring their attempts to stop them. However, one of the soldiers persists in requesting their attention. Their path is blocked by another Sekirei, who recognizes one of them as Kuno. Sensing danger, Kuno warns her Ashikabi to escape. Meanwhile, the residents of the boarding house resume their daily chores, under the watchful eye of the landlady. Tsukiyumi, noticing Minato's gaze fixed on Musubi's chest, playfully warns him to focus his attention on her instead. Later, Minato pays a visit to Matsu, hoping to invite her to join them at the table. However, he finds her deeply engrossed in her system, investigating MBI's top-secret activities. Intrigued, Minato moves closer to gain a better understanding of what she has uncovered. Matsu confides in Minato about a troubling matter involving a mysterious Sekirei who has been eliminating others and abandoning their lifeless bodies. Matsu continues her investigation into the enigmatic Sekirei, causing her concern. Musubi heads to Uzume's room with the intention of offering her some food, but discovers the room empty. Instead, she finds Uzume standing beside a hospital bed, tears streaming down her face as she watches an unfamiliar person lying unconscious. Kuchan approaches Minato, donning yet another one of Uzume's costumes. Intrigued, Minato engages Miya in a conversation, seeking more information about Uzume's situation. Miya reveals what little she knows about Uzume's frequent visits to a hospitalized human, although she remains unaware of the person's identity since all the costumes in Uzume's possession belong to them. Upon returning from the market with Tsukiyumi, Musubi ends up being the one to sit beside Minato. Minato arranges a meeting with his Sekireis, earnestly imploring them to exercise caution in their actions. He shares concerning information about the mysterious Sekirei who has been leaving the bodies of defeated Sekireis behind. Amidst the discussion, Matsu suggests a strategic retreat in case they find themselves in a battle to safeguard their lives. Minato reflects on his hope that the girls will eventually heed his words. However, his privacy is disrupted when Tsukiyumi enters the room, inquiring if he is genuinely concerned about her. She reassures him, asserting her strength and confidence in winning any potential fight. Minato is struck by a familiar sensation, reminiscent of when Musubi gave him a similar assurance. As Minato opens his door, he's surprised to find Musubi waiting outside. She informs him that dinner is ready and they should join the meal. Matsu notices Uzume's presence and inquires about her recent whereabouts, as she's been absent from home. Uzume provides a vague excuse, claiming to be occupied with work. However, Matsu's keen eye spots bloodstains on Uzume's shorts as she passes by, joining them for dinner. Musubi and Tsukiyomi engage in playful banter with Uzume, teasing her about the roles of being wives and mistresses to Minato as they all enter the bath together. Uzume expresses her heartfelt wish for them to remain together as allies rather than adversaries. However, she is gently reminded that there will come a time when they must face each other in battle. Meanwhile, Matsu discreetly slips into the closet to inspect the bloodstains she discovered on Uzume's shorts. Yukari prepares dinner for her guest Shiina, and they discuss his younger sister Kuchan, whom he has been searching for. Yukari shares her own memories of her brother and offers to assist him in locating his sister. Uzume visits the hospital once more, where a mysterious individual from MBI praises her for her recent accomplishments and entrusts her with their next target, reminding her of the limited time her Ashikabi has. Musubi and Tsukiyomi prepare to confront the enigmatic Sekirei who has been causing them trouble and eliminate her, while Kuno finds herself under attack by this strange Sekirei and must call upon her own powers. Musubi signals Tsukiyomi to investigate the source of a peculiar noise they had heard. Tsukiyomi issues a command for the mysterious Sekirei to reveal her identity and engage in battle, but the Sekirei declines, citing her unpreparedness for the confrontation. Tsukiyomi resumes her duel with her opponent, only to be disrupted by a drunken passerby who intervenes, claiming that it's unfair for the veiled Sekirei to face two adversaries. Tsukiyomi deciphers the meaning behind this and instructs Musubi to battle Kuno while she focuses on her veiled opponent. The inebriated lady, who identifies herself as a passerby, continues to obstruct Tsukiyomi's efforts. Tsukiyomi moves closer to the veiled Sekirei, shielding her, and reveals herself as a Sekirei named Kazahena. She cautions Tsukiyomi not to address her disrespectfully. Kazahena departs with the veiled opponent, leaving Tsukiyomi alone on the road. The veiled Sekirei unveils herself to Kazahena, inquiring about the reason for her rescue. It turns out that the veiled Sekirei is Uzume, who introduces herself officially and challenges Kazahena to a duel. Meanwhile, Kagari interrupts Matsu's intentions to conduct experiments on Minato, requesting additional medicine for his injury. While sorting through the laundry, Minato contemplates the words shared with him by Matsu. Suddenly, he hears his name being called, only to be surprised as Musubi descends from the sky, crashing into him. After ensuring Minato is unharmed, Musubi leads him back to his former apartment, where they are to meet someone. Musubi reaches the apartment and gently knocks on the door, introducing herself. To Minato's bewilderment, he finds himself back in his previous apartment, now accompanied by two strangers. Musubi introduces a teenager named Shigi-san and his Sekirei Kuno to Minato, expressing hope that they can offer each other assistance. Meanwhile, Tsukiyomi returns home in an irritated state and questions Matsu about Musubi's whereabouts. This leads to Tsukiyomi recounting her encounter with the veiled Sekirei and her inability to defeat her due to the interference of a passerby. Tsukiyomi begins to feel irritated with Matsu, sensing indirect insults, but Kuchan steps in to resolve the situation and persuades them to join her in the shower. Minato learns from Shigi about their shared predicament and how Shigi also aspires to gain entrance to Shintoito University, just like Minato, who had faced 2 failures in the entrance exams. Shigi confides in Minato and Musubi, sharing a secret that he needs assistance with. He expresses trust in Minato, believing him to be a trustworthy person. He recognizes Kuno's limitations, describing her as fragile and inept, with a loud voice as her only ability. They are determined to flee and avoid conflict. Matsu, on the other hand, advises Kuchan and Tsukiyomi to be cautious and avoid bathing with other Sekirei. Minato gains insight into their predicament, trapped in the capital. Shigi explains their unsuccessful escape attempts due to MBI's surveillance and the presence of a disciplined squad comprised of Sekireis, tasked with hunting down and eliminating anyone attempting to flee. Tsukiyomi rushes to Minato's room upon hearing his scream, only to be taken aback by the unexpected sight of Uzume and Kazahena, both unclothed, in bed with Minato. Miya intervenes swiftly, preventing Tsukiyomi from acting violently towards Kazahena, and advises Uzume to dress more modestly, reminding them that Minato is present. Uzume fabricates a story about how she came to know Kazahena, claiming that their meeting was purely accidental. Meanwhile, Musubi briefs the other residents of the house about their encounter with Kuno and her Ashikabi, who have a strong desire to leave the capital. Matsu provides Minato with advice, cautioning him against attempting to assist Shigi in leaving the Sekirei plan without proper authorization. She stresses that such actions would likely lead to MBI officially considering them as enemies, and that their plans are far from guaranteed to succeed. One of the members of the discipline squad, a blue Sekirei, reports the suspicious activities of certain Ashikabis and Sekireis in the northern area to the black Sekirei. Karasuba, who is the black Sekirei, receives this information while taking a bath. She shares the details of the discipline squad's origin and its members with her Ashikabi, expressing hope that Musubi will survive the night, driven by a promise they share. Kagari joins Kazahina in observing the unfolding plan, but decides not to participate. Meanwhile, Minato and the rest of the group remain hidden, watching the soldiers' presence and recalling Kaoru's words regarding the escape plan. The 1-hour countdown for their escape plan begins, initiated by Matsu. Musubi swiftly picks up Kuno and speeds away. Kaoru shares a kiss with the twin Sekireis, leading them to chant an incantation that unleashes significant power. The soldiers become intrigued by the sudden appearance of a child holding a plant in her small hands. One of the soldiers checks a tab and realizes that Kuchan is also on their list, but it's too late as her plants capture them. Minato praises Kuchan as they pass by the immobilized soldiers. Takami rushes to report the satellite's status to the professor, only to discover that Minaka is already aware of the situation. Matsu notices a sudden change in their plans as more soldiers head towards the child's location. She quickly orders them to move away, realizing that the MBI may have figured out their plans. Matsu reaches out to Kaoru to update him on the unexpected change in plans, but asks him to focus on the children. However, their conversation is abruptly cut off as Kaoru's phone gets fried by the powers of his Sekireis. Minato informs Matsu of his decision to return and save Kuchan, recognizing that her life is in grave danger if she is captured by the soldiers. Matsu reflects on Tsukiyumi's previous advice about hiding, as Minato persistently insists on rescuing Kuchan, fully aware of the dangers he might face. She makes a sudden decision and returns Minato's call, instructing him to continue with his escape while she takes charge of ensuring Kuchan's safety. Tsukiyumi observes the scene from the roof, noting Matsu's unexpected change in stance from hiding to active participation in the plan. She questions Matsu's resolve. Meanwhile, Kaoru struggles to defend himself against the pursuing soldiers, maintaining hope that their entire plan will come to fruition, with their roles successfully fulfilled. Kuchan bursts into tears and calls out for Minato as the soldiers prepare to use tear gas against her. Just in the nick of time, Matsu arrives and secures Kuchan, single-handedly confronting the soldiers. Yukari wakes from her sleep, noticing Shiina by the window. He beckons for her to follow him, and as she does, she witnesses Kuchan's powers in action. Kuno and her group realize they are close to their destination, but their path is blocked by 2 Sekireis from the discipline squad. They introduce themselves as Haihani and Benitsubasa. Musubi reassures Minato and the others as she charges at Benitsubasa. Haihani taunts her colleague as he observes Musubi's fearless approach, which only infuriates Benitsubasa further, vowing to eliminate Musubi. Musubi is forcefully thrown to the ground by Benitsubasa, who uses her immense strength to continuously strike her. Mia steps forward and captures Tsukiyumi's attention, reminding her of how the rest of the group is fighting to assist Minato. She implores Tsukiyumi not to be left behind and to join them in their efforts. In a fit of fury, Benitsubasa triggers an earthquake on the bridge, a direct response to Musubi's clever attack exploiting her insensitivity. Musubi swiftly moves to rescue Minato, who is perilously close to falling into the ocean. Benitsubasa lands forcefully and steps on Minato's fingers, threatening to push him off the bridge's edge. Minato reminds them of his inability to swim, adding a note of concern about what would happen if he ended up in the ocean. Struggling to return to the bridge after witnessing Musubi's clothes getting shredded, Minato urges her to give up and run away instead. However, Musubi adamantly insists on staying with him. Minato rushes toward Musubi as he notices the sudden disappearance of her Sekirei symbol, and he cries out in pain. Minato desperately attempts to rouse Musubi from her unconscious state and expresses grief over her condition. Nearby, Shigi shields Kuno from harm, but he becomes the target of Haihani's attacks, who employs his sharp claws. Kuno leans in closer to Shigi and shares a kiss with him, firm in her determination to employ her incantation to protect him. She releases her ultimate weapon by singing a song that weakens Haihani's powers, preventing him from attacking her Ashikabi. However, Kuno immediately faints after concluding the song with blood flowing from her mouth. Benitsubasa taunts Kuno for expending her last ounce of strength on such a song. However, Minato intervenes, defending Kuno's actions and offering support for her courageous efforts. Tsukiyomi enters the fray, making her presence known as she shields Minato from further attacks. Minato breaks the news to Tsukiyomi about Musubi's lost Sekirei symbol, provoking her anger and determination to seek revenge against those responsible for Musubi's apparent death. Haihane joins forces with Benitsubasa in their confrontation with Tsukiyomi. He uses his claws to tear Tsukiyomi's clothing, but she refuses to yield, employing her own powers to battle against her adversaries. However, facing two opponents proves to be a significant challenge for her. Benitsubasa opts to go after Minato, leaving Haihane to confront Tsukiyomi. Haihane uses his claws to sever a portion of the bridge, causing it to collapse onto Tsukiyomi, weakening her as she struggles to free herself and save Minato. Matsu attempts to contact Minato to inquire about an update, while Kuchan senses the presence of Shiina reaching out to her. Haihane taunts Benitsubasa for letting Minato land a hit on her. Tsukiyomi urges Minato to save himself by fleeing, but he stubbornly refuses to heed her advice. Benitsubasa becomes increasingly irritated as she listens to Minato explain his reasons for choosing not to run. She attempts to punch him, but they are both captivated by a strange light emanating from Musubi's body. Shiina rushes to meet Yukari, confesses his feelings for her, and they share a kiss. This romantic moment leads to Shiina's emergence as a Sekirei. Minato and the rest watch in astonishment as Musubi resurrects, introducing herself as Yume, the one destined to battle her opponents who stand in the way of love. Their shock intensifies as a strange voice scolds the members of the discipline squad, claiming to be their senior, emanating from Musubi's body. Musubi releases a powerful laser beam at Haihane and Benitsubasa as they attempt to attack her. Matsu and Kuchan arrive at the scene and approach Tsukiyomi to inquire about the laser beam. Karasuba joins them, expressing her excitement at meeting Yume once again. However, to everyone's surprise, Karasuba suddenly charges at Yume with her sword, attempting to harm her. Minato realizes that Yume has separated from Musubi's body as he recognizes her voice. He rushes to her with excitement. Karasuba reminds the group about the MBI's satellite countdown, which results in a laser beam striking the bridge and causing them to separate. Minato calls out to Kuno and is relieved to find them safe on the other side of the bridge. They bid their farewells as Shigi elopes with Kuno. Normalcy returns to the lives of the respective Sekireis, and Minato decides to begin prep school without having to lose any of his loved ones.